Thank you, everybody, and it's so good to see everybody. And we didn't plan to coordinate this, but Fix You has got to be one of my most favorite songs. I've got it on repeat. Coldplay is a favorite because, you know, we can't fix this. So if you look around the room, you will see a lot of faces that you know. You will also see a lot of faces that you don't know. But I bet that amongst us all, there is probably just 1 degree of separation. I don't know how many of you know Kevin Bacon, but we all have 1 degree of separation. But I'll also bet that we're all here for the same reason. So it really is a privilege to be here among you, not just as part of this climate conversation, but as part of the climate solution. Henry Ford once said, any color so long as it's black, that's why we're black. I don't mean that quote. Henry Ford once said that coming together is the beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. So that underlines the theory of change to accelerate global decarbonization for us. And that must be the aim of all of us coming together here. That is, that theme of working together, of collaboration, of coming together is already emerging. I don't know how many days you've been here, but got here yesterday. And in the very first meeting, we already started talking about that, about coming together and about collaboration. So a very big thank you to the team at GenZero for the warm invitation to deliver this keynote, as well as the outstanding organization in putting this climate summit together. Very timeous. I see Fred. I haven't seen you, Fred, so good to see you, Fred. Timeous, but I do think that when it comes to the climate, that's exactly the one thing we don't have, is time. And the climate crisis is something all of us live with daily. It's felt more keenly by some versus others. 2024 was the hottest year ever recorded. Again, anybody feeling like a frog yet? And we've now lived through the 10 hottest years in history, and all of them have happened in the last decade. So atmospheric CO2 is at levels not seen in 2 million years. And with that comes devastation, right? The floods, the storms, the displacement. And let's be clear, when we talk about the devastation, it's about humankind. The planet will bounce back. The planet will suffer, but the planet always bounces back. We, unfortunately, have just the one life. Even if you believe in reincarnation, you have this one life, right? And you really don't want to come to back to a planet that's failing. And yet, despite all of this, we still have political will that is overwhelmingly faltering. We still have many that are waiting for the perfect system or the perfect rules. And I think what we need, and we've been talking about this now for a couple of months, what we need is a mindset shift around this. Because what is the ill that we are trying to cure? And do we have the antibiotics to cure those ills? The ills that we are trying to cure are many, and they are interdependent. So carbon emissions, but we're not just trying to solve for carbon emission reductions. We're also trying to solve for socioeconomic development. We're trying to solve for energy access, for education crises, the environmental degradation. The list goes on. We have the antibiotics. We have the solutions. What we don't have is the means to get these solutions to the right places where it can make the most difference. What, may I ask you, is that? What do we require right now to deliver serious, meaningful climate impact? Not the vanilla kind, but the one that is coupled with socioeconomic growth and development? I think we all know the answer. It's finance. And we need finance now. This is what it boils down to. Finance, though, backed by credible sources that will not leave countries worse off and will not exacerbate problems, but finance that will be impactful in the right way. How much do we need? Trillions of dollars, sources say, right? We've all read the reports. It's trillions of dollars. I don't know if any of you have ever pictured $1 trillion. It is a lot. Where is this credible source of financing coming from? Public financing definitely plays a huge role. What we've seen in the COP process, though, is we keep moving the bars, right? But we're not meeting those goals. So when we talk about real scalable financing, only the private sector can deliver that. And right now, the only mechanism through which this is possible is the carbon market. And I want to be very clear, carbon markets are not the silver bullet. It's not a panacea. It comes pretty close, though, because it is one of the most scalable operational climate tools that we have today. We don't need to wait for it to be perfect. Actually, show me a market that is perfect. There isn't one. But we learn as we go along, and when we know better, we do better. And the carbon market is already working. I mean, a lot of you in the room that I know as project developers, as investors, as buyers, you know that the carbon market has worked, is working. Billions in climate finance have flowed through carbon markets, often to places that are traditionally or most neglected by traditional finance. And projects funded through the VCM, through the voluntary carbon market, I want to drop that V, but that's a conversation for another day, the V in VCM. They do more than reduce emissions. They build clinics, they restore forests, they create jobs, they change lives. And at Verra, we are proud to lead this charge with over 4,000 active projects in about 125 countries, more than 1 billion credits issued. We're not just the standard setter. We see ourselves as a mobilizer of global climate action, together with a lot of you in the room. So not something we're doing on our own, but something we're doing with a lot of you. And we are continuously raising the bar on what integrity looks like in this space. We are building the infrastructure that define the market. It's not just about carbon, but it's also the infrastructure for credibility. And that is why today I'm actually very proud to share with you that Verra is launching its new first-of-its-kind methodology to support the early responsible retirement of coal-fired power plants. Developed with the Coal to Clean initiative that has been led by the Rockefeller Foundation, this approach enables real emission reductions only when the coal is replaced with new renewable energy and critically coupled with just transition. So building in protection for workers and communities. And this is what just transition can look like in practice. Real climate impact paired with real safeguards for people and equity. And this is the type of climate finance we need more of. We've also been working on what we call impact stories. And these are the stories of what the communities are feeling from the carbon market. So if you go onto our website, you'll find these stories. One of them is a young lady from Guatemala called Mayra. At 14, she was being forced into a marriage. But thanks to the Women and the Girls program, supported by a carbon finance project, she was able to forge her own path. And Mayra became the first in her community to go to college. And today she is studying forest engineering and inspiring the next generation to lead as well. So then just quickly, I see my time's running down, just very quickly, when we talk about the theory of change, when we talk about what is the theory of change for accelerated decarbonization, there are 4 interconnected pillars that we are looking at. First, aligning global frameworks. We heard this yesterday in a roundtable as well. The last thing we need is a more fragmented, disparate market. How do we bring together compliance, Article 6, voluntary carbon markets together? Alignment reduces that fragmentation, it builds trust, and it creates impact. Second, collaboration. We can do so much more together, and let's look at ways in which we can collaborate. Thirdly, quality and integrity. And we're looking at new high-integrity methodologies that I just mentioned, digitalization, DMRV, all of these things are absolutely key to that. And the fourth pillar is solving multiple crises at once. We can't just solve for decarbonization. We're also solving for socioeconomic growth, environmental protection. And I know some of you might be thinking, all of that sounds wonderful and sounds great. What about the critiques of the carbon market? What about the negativity we've seen? I think that is a learning for us. You know, we learn from this, we learn from the criticism. When we see the criticism, we learn to do better. What is it that we are doing wrong? And we use it as a learning moment for ourselves. But I also say to people, temper what you hear. You know, as Abraham Lincoln said, don't believe everything you read on the internet. So I think just temper what you hear. And for me, one of my most favorite quotes comes from George Bernard Shaw, which says, people who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those that are doing it. And those of us in the room are the ones that are doing it. So I think we want to talk about what can we do now, because when we know that when the carbon markets succeed, we don't have to choose between humankind and the planet. We all win. Humankind and the planet wins. And before I go, I want to let Mayra tell her story. So can we play that video quickly? And thank you, everybody.
Soy asesora agroforestal productivo de Fundaeco, programa Mujer y Niñas Sanas y Empoderadas.
Mientras más aislada está una mujer en un área rural, menos oportunidades tiene de participación. Es por eso que nosotros estamos haciendo esos esfuerzos para que ellas se involucren.
El programa Mujer, Niñas Sanas y Empoderadas me ha cambiado la vida, me ha dado la oportunidad de seguir estudiando.